Good day, everybody, and welcome to Alpha vs. Omega, the quest where you finally take on Rasial, the first Necromancer, and learn a bit more about his motives and things to come. In order to start this quest, you need to complete all other quests in this Necromancy series, the last one being Remains of the Necro Lord. You also need level 95 Necromancy and 30,000 souls in your Vessel of Souls in the city of Am. To get started, speak to Rasial, who is on this bridge in the middle of the city here. Okay, the rest of the quest is straightforward. You fight Hermod, who is very similar to Hermod in his own quest, and then you fight Rasial, a weaker version than the actual fight that you unlock after the quest, but it is still very challenging, and actually I died myself a few times here, so I will recommend the best gear that you can have. If you can see my inventory, I have full bruise, vulnerability bomb, overloads, whatever you can get your hands on. Vampirism aura is great, or Aegis aura. If you have a Hellhound familiar, I strongly suggest that, because this is a tough boss to learn and he'll hit you very hard if you're not used to him. Salve Amulet will boost your damage and accuracy a lot on Rasial. If you have the Zook cape for Necromancy, strongly suggested, not required, but it'll speed things up. The very best gear you can have, T90 weapons for sure of Necromancy. I recommend T90 or Tier 90 tank armor, even if you have the Tier 90 or whatever power armor, because the tank armor has its own damage reduction that's really good, almost 20%, and it can boost your life points by a lot. When you're ready, talk to Karen, and don't right-click travel, but speak to her, and go through the dialogue to get to Rasial's Citadel to proceed with the quest properly. That sounds like a lot for a little bit of quest prep fight, and I don't think I did all of that myself here, but I will say that after this recording, I am now at over 100, almost 120 Rasial kills in the actual boss fight, so I have learned a thing or two. I'll show you how I died here a few times, because I wasn't expecting it to be so difficult, but yeah. First, we fight Hermod here. Then I'll talk you through Rasial. So Hermod in this fight is basically identical to the fight in his quest. He has lower HP, lower damage. He just starts with a few more conjured minions. Kill them however you wish. Spectral Scythe is great, or just Death Skulls. It'll bounce between them. And otherwise, whatever Revolution bar or very active bar you've developed on your own at this point, if you've hit level 95 Necromancy, assuming it wasn't all just through rituals, this should not be a difficult fight for you. If it is, I'm going to say reference maybe my Hermod quest video, because I go into a bit more detail as far as beginner strategies there, but really you just hit him, avoid his spinning slam attack, kill the minions when they pop up, and you'll be fine. You don't even really need to rush this, and as a note, once you kill him, even if you leave and come back to the Citadel, you'll have moved forward onto the Rasial fight. So if you prefer to teleport out now and restock, do so, because you don't get much of an intermission. The next fight starts now. Alrighty then, onto the fun part. Rasial has 400,000 life points, half that of his normal boss fight encounter. He has a lot of mechanics, he has a lot of things that he does. He's kind of like the Magister 2.0. He does a lot of damage in very different ways. The base strategy is the same as the Magister actually, you just hit him harder and ignore everything. In this run-through, I died. I think it's important to show you that. And I'm not going to explain all his mechanics in great detail because as a beginner to Rasial, I don't think it's going to help you very much to pay attention to all that. I'll tell you a few things to not do, first of all. Do not lead with Soul Split if you're not used to this fight, as I did. Don't accidentally Spectral Scythe like I did there either. Stay between 3 and 6 spaces away from him. If you're too close, he'll do a weird thing where he jumps away and you have to chase him. If you're too far away, he'll spawn his minions more often. He'll spawn minions anyways, but if you have Death Skulls, the easiest thing is to just use that and it'll take care of them for you. If you really want to take care of them faster, you can Spectral Scythe or whatever, but they're not really a big problem. It's best to just focus on Rasial. At this point in my Necromancy experience, my rotation wasn't that great. I'm not full Revolution, but I'm not full manual either. I'm just firing off the big abilities like Finger of Death, Death Skulls, and Living Death manually when possible. You don't have to escape those ghosts. That's tip number 3, 4. You can just walk backwards onto the space that the ghosts spawn, like as soon as they spawn pretty much, and you'll avoid the damage. If you're familiar with Taraket the Necromancer, it's the same wall of ghosts basically, and he can spawn those pretty often, like back to back even. It's really annoying, but The way to deal with them is to step back just a tiny bit. I apologize if this all sounds rushed, by the way. There is a lot going on in this fight, and I'm just tackling it as it comes. So, long story short here, as I died, let me show you a successful run, a more successful run. I've told you a few things not to do, now let me tell you some tips to actually do for this fight. Hellhound, strongly suggest. Vampirism or Aegis, again, strongly suggest. Pre-summon your 3 familiars before the fight. Note that currently, this should be fixed soon, but currently there's a bug with dialogue interfaces, so talk to Karen again. She'll close the interfaces a bunch of times on you because your conjures are out, but anyways, deal with that. Pre-use the Ghost's command ability, so that, because currently summoning your conjures and using their specials don't cost any adrenaline. That is also subject to change after this video, but hopefully it's not too different. If you're using tank armor, right when Rasial spawns or right before, cast Death Mark, that spell that will put a death mark on him. Don't surge forward, that was just a bad keybind. And if possible, use a vulnerability bomb and start with Death Skulls. Death Skulls currently are also bugged, I think, and this is also possibly subject to change, but if you have a vulnerability bomb down, Death Skulls will amplify the effect of that with every hit that they bounce, so take advantage of that. In here, I started with Living Death. It's not as efficient, but it'll also work if you just have that on your full Revo bar. Use not Soul Split, but use Deflect Necromancy. If you are using Deflect Necromancy, he has a few abilities that turn it off periodically. Just give it a few ticks and turn it back on. It is still overall way better, and you'll sponge up much more damage than if you have Soul Split. He'll wreck you really hard unless you're more experienced. You also need to worry a lot less about his very damaging attacks if you have Deflect Necromancy up, because the way to deal with his more damaging specials is to have that prayer up anyways. Once you've damaged him a little bit, those 2 obelisks will pop up and his 5 little soul dots will appear. This is the same as your soul sap, but he has 5 because of his little lantern. Once those 5 fill up, he'll hit you really hard with all 5. You can Deflect Necromancy and use Devotion if you really want to mitigate it, or you just tank it. I strongly suggest having maybe just Living Death and Death Skulls on your Revolution bar, along with the adrenaline boosting abilities, the Touch of Death, Soul Sap, and the auto attack. If you're already a little bit experienced with Necromancy, then you know that you can have like Finger of Death and Volley of Souls on your hotkeys to use those as appropriate. And here I'm going to rewind us and actually take us to a different kill where I died, because 2 different things happened here. Independent things, but the timing just worked out that way. At one point in the fight, in the actual boss fight, it's 1 minute and 20 seconds in, he'll barge you with the Spectral Scythe, and he'll stun you and turn off your Deflect Prayer. To handle this, use Freedom right away, step a few spaces away from him, like 3 spaces at least, wait a few more seconds and turn on Deflect from Necromancy again. What you just saw was my first run through where I was still soul splitting. You'll notice he doesn't turn that off, but you still need to Freedom and get away from him before he scythes you more and does his other special mechanics. Now, the second thing that happens here independently is that when he hits 100,000 life points, he jumps up onto his platform, and you need to turn on Soul Split right away and fire off a Reflect or a Debilitate immediately. He starts this bombing phase. It's technically phase 4. You need to not stand still. I did not know that here, but here's what happens if you do. He turns off Deflect Necromancy if you have it on, but not Soul Split. And this is the part where most people will die and find tricky, especially if you're kind of a beginner with manual combat. So he fires off very high damaging bombs all throughout the arena, all around you. There doesn't appear to be a real pattern. The only way to for sure dodge most of them, not even all of them, is to just move away from wherever the spots appear on the ground. Typically the panic pattern is to just run back and forth and back and forth. The biggest problem with this, especially for beginners, is that you need to be constantly attacking him while you're running around and dodging. So what I suggest is this: have brews, because you can chug them constantly and they will not decrease your adrenaline, which is really important for this part. If you're panicking and you're getting hit a lot, just keep hitting your brews hotkey as often as you can. Keep Soul Split up, not Deflect Necromancy like I said here. Have your summons up. If you don't have anything else hotkeyed, at least have your summons hotkeyed. Your skeleton and your ghost, and even just firing off the skeleton special attack when you can will help a lot. And here I do recommend having at least the basic attack hotkeyed. Soul Sap hotkeyed is also great, and if you want to go that far, Touch of Death hotkeyed is excellent also, because you can run around and keep clicking him to attack and run around and click him to attack, but you stop a lot that way, and stopping means you'll take a lot of damage here. If you have hotkeys for even basic attacks, it is much easier to keep running constantly and keep attacking him. So like you'd run somewhere, you'd click to run somewhere, use a hotkey for a basic attack, and then click immediately again, and you basically won't stop moving. If you're already used to something like hard mode Zook in his last phase, then this advice is trivial for you, but if that's way out of your league right now, then at least you can run around with an inventory of brews and just fire off basic abilities hotkeyed fast enough to eventually kill him. It'll take a while, but an inventory of brews should do the trick. From there, once you have enough adrenaline, fire off your death skulls once they're off of cooldown. Even living death, if that's up first, it'll still help you because you can fire off Finger of Death and Volley of Souls and things like that to speed things up a little bit, but primarily use your defensives to last a little bit longer. You can lead with like a Reflect, for example. Make sure you have at least 50% adrenaline. I don't know why I ran all the way over there. Pure Panic. And then after 10 seconds or so, when Reflect runs out, you can use like Debilitate, and you'll keep a like 50% damage reduction up for quite a while. And you can see here on this successful run, I definitely panicked. I definitely didn't notice Soul Split yet. I just gave up on overhead prayers. I paused, ran around, whatever, and just fired off a basic attack every now and then when I could, just chugging food along the way. You'll see it still works, and if you apply Death Mark, either via Power Armor or manually if you're using Tank Armor, you just need to get him to 30,000 HP and he's gone. Again, for the more beginner PVMers out there that usually rely on full Revo, I wish I could tell you better news, but unfortunately, yeah, key binding basics at least is the way to survive this fight, and just moving constantly. Finish up the fight, and then I'll let Rasial speak as to his intentions, motives, things to come.
This possible? How could this be? You have destroyed my physical form. Do you know how long it takes me to reform that? You fool. I was trying to clean up your mess. I may not be able to return in time to stop the shadows. You've set me back too long. How did you even achieve this? I have been studying necromancy since the First Age. You are but a fledgling. It takes many lifetimes to amass such undead power. Ah, so that is the secret. Finally, you have shown me how to access the truest form of necromantic power. I had given up hope. Wasted so much time on petty and selfish necromancers of ages past. Of course, it would take a fellow guardian to truly understand. I am pleased my lessons have taught you to be so strong. Perhaps you can clean up your own messes. Certainly you are beyond my aid, now that I am without fool. I've no doubt I would have consumed your necromancy knowledge and enacted my plan if you had not bested me. Someone has to step up to protect this world. I just assumed that meant me. I am not, however, displeased with this outcome. It is rare that I underestimate someone. Congratulations, you win. I am true to my word. I shall release the undead from my throne. Good luck. You will need them in the wars to come. Perhaps we shall meet again in a future age, should you not fail to preserve this universe.
And with that, you are just about done. You'll end up here. Just speak to Death in the center of the city, and quest complete. Congratulations. Death will tell you a bit more about Rasial. But meanwhile, congrats. Have fun learning the boss fight. It actually is a pretty fun boss fight, the actual Rasial fight, once you get used to it. And it honestly will teach you a lot about PVMing. I never went full manual before ever, but Rasial taught me very quickly, to be honest. So keep an eye out for my full actual Rasial boss fight guide. I have yet to make it as of this recording, but I will try my very best to make that as beginner friendly as possible in a way that teaches you better PVMing tactics. Okay, I'll stop speaking over Death, and thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.